RustyCage is probably one of the more interesting creators on the platform. For those of you who aren't aware, RustyCage is a musician and an artist here on YouTube. He has made a plethora of songs, but you probably know him for the Knife Game song. Personally, one of my favorite videos he made were the Stolen Slushy Machine series and the one where he went sober. Shortly after he finished the Going Sober series, shortly meaning 3 years afterwards, he started a new project, the Guillotine series. The series revolves around Rusty building a guillotine as he provides commentary on various topics. The thing that surprised me the most when I watched the series when it came out is that it had an actual story that seemed pretty personal at times, which is not something I expected. Sometimes it was hard to distinguish what was real and what was staged or exaggerated. To my surprise, there wasn't much discussion about the series as a whole. Everyone just focused on the stream that came out after the series ended. So I decided to fix that by being the only person on YouTube to cover the entire series. The first episode begins with Rusty confessing his fear of failure, specifically his fear that his channel will die due to a constant demand for content that he isn't able to provide. There are multiple instances of Rusty criticizing the fact that the algorithm is forcing people to create perpetually more extreme yet sanitized content. Throughout the series, he will also criticize certain laws, companies, and the government. Along with that, Rusty believes that the society is collapsing. Due to this, he has adopted a prepper-like mindset and can be seen stocking up on food and other necessities. He also criticizes our reliance on modern conveniences. This part finishes with Rusty asking what he should do.
Le l'homme de la guillotine doit tomber quelque part.
He is answered by a mysterious voice from a walkie-talkie, who tasks him with building a guillotine. The voice from the walkie-talkie is voiced by James Lee, the guy behind the Tarboy animation. He's most well known for making heavily edited satirical videos.
Fuck a duck. What the hell was that? Something terrible inside of me. A key to the disturbing true nature of cringiness. Oh Lord of misery, what do I do? What do I do? Bury it.
He also uses the same voice modifier as the voice from the walkie-talkie. He was honestly a perfect choice for the character. Rusty is initially hesitant, but after the voice says this,
"The knowledge will manifest itself to you only when the time has come, and all will be revealed. For this burden is yours, and it will be done."
Rusty begins with the preparations. While building the guillotine, he will often narrate over the footage, talking about a specific topic from the episode. The topic from this episode is the history of the guillotine, its role in the French Revolution and its use after the Revolution. He also spoke about the mass fear that the counter-revolutionaries are plotting against France, which led to political crimes being treated more seriously, and people convicted of those crimes being executed without a trial. The French Revolution and the concept of revolution is a large theme in this series. I want to shine the light on a specific part of the video in which Rusty goes on to criticize how we view the French Revolution as people marching against the oppressive aristocrats, even though only 8% of the casualties were aristocrats. The other 85 were regular people. I don't want to be that guy, but actually the number was closer to 8.5, with 6.5% representing the casualties from the clergy, leaving the perfectly round 85% for the casualties of the regular people. Get your facts straight, Rusty. Each video also contains a song that is connected to the topic of the video. The name of the song from the first episode is Get Your Head Chopped Off. It's a song about having one's head chopped off on the guillotine, if you couldn't tell. The rhythm of the song is reminiscent of an old folk song, which made a few viewers believe that it's an actual old song. That is pretty much all I have to say about this one. I don't really know much about music, so I'm just going to move on. During the night, after Rusty was done for the day, he's awoken by a news report. The report references a real-world event from when the series was made, when India banned all wheat exports due to the war in Ukraine. The reporter gets cut off for a moment by the voice telling Rusty to check his rations. The voice continues speaking to Rusty, half mockingly as he's looking over his rations, while the reporter, voiced by Hugbees, starts quoting the Bible. We finally get some semblance of the voice's identity, because he tells Rusty to call him Al. There is also a lot of symbolism in the series. I personally believe that the reporter quoting the Bible after mentioning a huge world event is supposed to represent how, in times of crisis, people often look to the higher power for help. And since the reporter is someone with some level of authority over regular people, it could represent how those in power use religion for control, similar to how news outlets might twist the truth to suit their own interests. The second episode is where Rusty starts building the actual guillotine, or at least the foundations. He also informs us that a few metal workers from his audience have volunteered to build him a blade for his guillotine, because his original plan of using a street sign would not work very well for cutting heads. I mean, lemons. He also decides to call his guillotine a lemonade stand, so that the algorithm will promote his videos more. I wonder if this is supposed to be a critique of YouTubers who censor specific words by saying a word that sounds similar to it to avoid demonetization. Or perhaps he's criticizing YouTube and its algorithm for more or less forcing YouTubers to censor words. Something important to note is that the scenes in this episode often switch between Rusty inside the tent and Rusty outside of it. One of the bigger differences being that Rusty is wearing red clothes while inside of the tent. This is not the first time this happened, because we've seen this exact thing at the start of the first episode. Keep this in mind for later. As I have said before, Rusty criticizes laws at certain points in the series. The first instance of that happens in this episode. After being asked if he needs a permit to build a guillotine, he answers that he wasn't able to find any laws on that. However, he adds that he would need a permit if he were building an actual lemonade stand. Heat is a reoccurring issue in this episode. Rusty even goes into detail about how the human body deals with heat and what happens if it overheats. While taking a rest from overexhaustion, a YouTuber by the name Chubby Emu makes a cameo to basically make a meme about Rusty touching grass. Chubby Emu is a channel owned by a toxicologist. He tells stories about real medical cases, and his videos are titled similarly to the joke made in the previous scene. I'm not sure why he made an appearance in this episode. The reason might be because Rusty previously talked about what happened to the human body after it overheats, which would be considered a medical emergency. Or it might be some kind of a commentary that my brain is too small to understand. Rusty's nap is interrupted by Al, who mocks him for not being able to handle a little heat, as he puts it, and for giving up so easily. When Rusty protests by explaining that he is working under 110 degrees Fahrenheit because he's an American, Al explodes on him, insulting him and completely disregarding the hardship Rusty is facing. Al asks Rusty how he is going to survive the collapse, referring to the collapse of the society. He also mocks him by comparing him to Mr. Beast, saying that he was able to survive in the desert, but Rusty can't survive in normal heat. to which Rusty exclaims that he is not Mr. Beast. As he says that, subtitles appear, mimicking Mr. Beast's style of editing. Al continues insulting Rusty by calling him a failure. This infuriates Rusty so much that he throws the walkie-talkie, tripping in the process and receiving head trauma, to which Al simply says that he was just fucking with him, with an unserious tone, laughing. Rusty mentions that some states have laws against booby traps, which includes Florida, the state he lives in. He goes on to criticize this law for its inherent hypocrisy, since you can legally shoot someone if you believe that they were a threat on your life, but you cannot ensure that no one harms your property while you're away. He explains that this is because the law is there to protect people, at least on paper, and not your property, since because you were away, there was no threat posed on you. Also, it could harm unwanted victims such as children, firemen, etc. Rusty, however, remains skeptical of the validity of that. After that, Rusty sings the song Kill the Sun. Something interesting about this song is that it's one of two songs in the series whose music video is drastically different from the version in the episode they are from, and it's coincidentally my second favorite song in the series. In the music video, Rusty is wearing red, much like prior in the video, and is basked in red light. The name of the song is a bit of a callback to what he said earlier in the video, when he expressed the desire to cut the sun's head off with a guillotine. The sun could be a synonym for a ruler or the ruling class, since the sun was often connected to the divinity in the ancient times. So considering the fact that he is building a guillotine, the fact that he spoke of how the French royal family were executed, and the constant themes of Rusty being dissatisfied with the world and the government, it isn't that far-fetched to assume that. The lines "sear the cities, torch the towns, light the fire, burn it down" further enforces that he is singing about a revolution in my mind. Since his struggle with the heat is a big theme in this episode, "Cut the lights off" could represent his desire to escape the problems of the current society, while the line "back to night, back to darkness, never bright, praise the moon as king again, let shadows be your friend" could represent his desire for a change in society. He also said to spare mother, father and daughter, but not the son. In fact, he specifically said to kill the son, while referencing Isaac and Abraham from the Bible. It's possible that Isaac represents sacrifices that we have to make in life, and everyone else being spared except the son could represent the inherent unfairness of it all, and how some people will suffer more than the others. The line "Old man Abraham has all the fun" could refer to people who benefit from our suffering. After the song, Rusty continues talking about the heat, saying that it's 97 degrees out, less than the average human internal temperature, and how he has grown weak from sitting in front of the computer all day. He complains about the algorithm, likening it to a god and a hive mind. He expresses his worry about how reliant we have become to social media, concluding that there is no stopping it, but if we are lucky, we might find an alternate route. The episode ends with Rusty saying that he is going to pass out, as he encourages the viewer to like, subscribe and leave a comment for the algorithm, which coincidentally is exactly what you should do. Rusty had a guillotine blade delivered to him from one of his fans. After showing off his new blade and reminiscing at all the choices that led him to this point in his life, Rusty asks the important question: is he edgy? Personally, as someone who has been watching him for a while, I think that there is an element of edginess to his content. Not necessarily in a bad or cringy way. As he said in the video, his intention was never to be edgy, but to toe the line between what is and isn't acceptable. And yeah, he can definitely appear as someone who is being edgy for the sake of being edgy at times, but his edginess is part of his charm. As he said himself, his inability to figure out if he is going too far is probably the reason for his success. He questions whether he might be overthinking it all, and maybe it is not the system holding him back, but his inability to adapt to the progressing circumstances of the modern world. Rusty starts arguing with Al about content creation. Rusty is once more adorned in red. The room is irradiated by the matching light. Here's what I believe in. Whenever we see red Rusty, that is not the actual Rusty. Instead, that is a representation of his mind. That is why the scene constantly shifts between red Rusty and the real Rusty collecting fallen branches outside. The entire conversation is happening in his head. Red Rusty criticizes the way content is produced and what sway the algorithm has on it. He stands for the artistic freedom and expression, whereas Al stands for obeying the algorithm and obeying the rules, because it's the best, easiest, and safest way to success. This represents Rusty's conflicted mindset, not being sure if he should be true to himself or play it safe. Al is cut off as Rusty turns off the walkie-talkie and tosses it away, quieting down the voices and ceasing to listen to the outside influence. Al, much like Red Rusty, is also not a real person. Despite Rusty talking and arguing with him, he is just a representation. He represents exactly what Rusty said, outside influences, or rather everything that influences him. The algorithm, news outlets, his doubt, and the influence other things and people have on him, which is why he is constantly so harsh towards Rusty. Him throwing away the walkie-talkie symbolizes his choice to ignore it. For now. A quote from Plutarch appears. The destroyer of liberties of the people is he who spreads among them bounties, donations, and benefits. This quote is relevant because of the series' criticism on how reliant we have become to the conveniences of our everyday life, which would make us less free in a way, since we can't live without them. Rusty starts to wonder if this is a terrible idea and if there is even a point to this project. He concludes that he must build the guillotine because it's better to have one and not need it than to need one and not have it. He confesses to believing that the destruction of the modern civilization is inevitable and makes himself a lemonade. There is no song in this video, however, at the end, as Rusty wakes up, covered in red light once again, but this time he wears the same clothes as usual, which might signal that this is not happening in his head, although I doubt that, since the appearance of red light in the series is synonymous with things that aren't happening in the real world. He hears music outside of the tent and goes to investigate. The sound led him to where he left Al's walkie-talkie, the song Lemon Squeezing Blues coming out of it. As he was about to reach for the walkie-talkie, it was snatched away by someone in a pig mask. Now, I don't believe that an actual guy in a pig mask took Rusty's walkie-talkie in front of him. This is probably more symbolic, though I'm not sure in what way. The best theory I was able to come up with thus far is that the pig guy represents how there will always be someone who will conform to the algorithm, which is why he picked up Al's walkie-talkie. The beginning of the video is a parody of Mr. Beast style intros. As the segment ends, the colors become more muted and Rusty loses his enthusiasm. Rusty continues with his usual depressing rants, saying that we must be grateful for what we have, referring to the minimal necessities of life, shelter, water, and food. And as long as we have those, there is still hope that everything will turn out okay. Not good, not better, just okay, tolerable. At this point, Rusty is clearly starting to lose hope, not believing that things can be better. We switch to an event that happened a week ago in the timeline, mainly Rusty's water becoming contaminated by black worms. Rusty talks about the misconception that collecting rainwater is illegal, but nonetheless sometimes a permit might be required. In many states, rainwater is restricted to non-drinking purposes because of the forever chemicals. He goes into detail as to what that is. There are certain chemicals that our body cannot break down, so they stay inside us indefinitely, which can lead to health problems. He then moves on onto a conspiracy theory. To sum it up, during World War II, the US government wanted to build more nukes. To do that, they needed more fluoride, so they contracted companies to mass produce it. This led to farmlands, farmers, and their animals being poisoned. Farmers filed a lawsuit, which, if it went through, would result in the US government not being able to build more nukes. To counteract this, they began a campaign to convince the populace that fluoride is good for the teeth. It is true that some toothpaste contains fluoride and that some countries put fluoride in water. The biggest danger is that it can lead to dental and skeletal fluorosis, which is science speak for bad teeth and weak bones. However, paradoxically, it is also good for your teeth and bones, as long as you take it in small doses. Just make sure you don't swallow your toothpaste, especially if you're a child, which, now that I think about it, it's a wonder I have functioning teeth. People have argued whether the government should or shouldn't put chemicals that are potentially dangerous in water. In fact, some doctors have argued that there is little medical value in it. And as Rusty mentioned, there is some evidence that fluoride could have negative effects on the human body, along with the function of the brain. Red Rusty returns. He shows us a ballistic dummy he acquired to test his lemonade chopper. He also names it Jeff. I don't know if this is supposed to be a reference to Jeff Bezos or to My Name is Jeff meme. I would say the former, or maybe it's just a random name, who knows. After Rusty finished placing the two wooden beams and the lunette, which is this part of the guillotine by the way, he places the lunette over his neck and gazes at where the blade of the guillotine is going to be. He starts talking about the time when the CEO of Nestle argued that water shouldn't be a human right, but instead commodified. He continues by adding that Nestle owns many companies that sell water, effectively having a monopoly on water, as he steals water from a gas station as a way of sticking it to the corporation and reclaiming some sense of control. I know that this scene is presented as him taking something from Nestle that doesn't belong to it and him reclaiming some level of control, but what he's actually doing isn't stealing from Nestle. No, Nestle has already received the money from the gas station that bought the water. What he is actually doing is stealing something from the gas station that very same gas station spent money on. He goes on to criticize our complacent reliance on corporations to fulfill our needs. As he's saying this, Red Rusty is seen watching news reports on the disasters that happened around the world. Seeing this, he starts stocking up on food, as Rusty's voice continues talking. Since we have already established that everything Red Rusty does happens inside of Rusty's mind, this could mean that he is actually thinking about that he should stock up on more food. Or maybe I'm just looking too much into this. Rusty starts pondering the evolutionary purpose of panic. As he does so, he tells Jeff that they are not so different, which took me a second to comprehend the narrative relevance of it. As Rusty continues to talk about panic, we can see a red glow outside of the tent. Then we hear a familiar voice.
Time is running out.
Rusty goes on to work, the pig looming in the distance, watching him, as Al calls his efforts futile. Rusty continues working as he questions the futility of our actions. More than ever before, he fears the revolution and thinks about all the possible groups who could be on the chopping block, anticipating that he could be one of them. The video ends with him using the guillotine on Jeff. Well, not really. There is a scene after that in which Rusty addresses the viewers directly, saying that the series is not over because he still has more he wants to do, and that there are 2 more episodes left. He also says that we should go to his second channel, Rusty Uncaged, where he will upload the next video, where he will answer all the questions. Now, when I got there, I quickly realized that this video doesn't exist, since the most recent one is from 2022, and this episode came out in 2023, which made me confused for a while as I tried to find what happened to the video, until I realized that he posted it on his main channel. In the next video, Rusty answers the questions of how much it costs to build a guillotine, which came to around $1,900. Then he adds that we need to keep in mind that the price of lumber fluctuates, so if we intend to build our own, it could cost more. Also, he didn't include the price of the blade, but he estimated that it would cost somewhere between $200 to $400. One of my favorite things in this series is watching someone who is clearly inexperienced attempt to build a guillotine, a sentiment that some viewers didn't share. As he's building the stairs for the guillotine, he talks about how long it takes a person to die after getting decapitated. He mentions some instances of people supposedly being alive after decapitation and some studies on animals. He also submitted his guillotine to the Guinness World Records, but he got rejected because there are guillotines bigger than his. The latter gave an example of a guillotine that is 1,000 feet tall, which is about 300 meters. Who was that made to kill, fucking giants? Also, Jeff's decapitated head talks in this video and is voiced by Simeon Jimmy.
Please stop violating my neck hole every night for your filthy pleasure.
Shut up.
Finally, there is also a deleted scene with an inspector. I won't cover it because it's not relevant to the story and I want to make my job easier. The 5th episode starts with Rusty walking over a tree that fell due to a storm. He notices that the tree was rotting from the inside. On a brighter side, he found 2 baby squirrels. They die later. Rusty named them Nutso and Bark. He took care of them and waited until their mother returned, but as fate would have it, raccoons found them first. He is disheartened by his failure to do the right thing, reasoning that raccoons have to eat too, and that all things must come to an end. After this, Rusty references the rotten tree by saying that before things come to an end, they will rot and corrupt, and despite our attempts to do the right thing, it will just lead to further inevitable destruction. He shares that the only solace we can take is that the worst of the storm is yet to come, believing that the World War III seems closer every day, proclaiming that even now he just can't catch a break. This episode is by far the heaviest and the longest. Throughout this episode, Rusty will refer to the end of civilization as the storm. Because of the falling branches, Rusty is forced to move his tent. As he's building a platform on which he will place his tent, he warns his viewers to be wary when they are buying a home, because as he says, you could be swindled into buying a home above a sinkhole, land poisoned by a chemical spill, or some diseased marshland full of dying trees, which isn't really a problem nowadays since no one can afford a house. He adds that even if you find a perfect location, the government can just take it away under the guise of it being repurposed for the good of the public. He then goes on to state that the 5th Amendment offers some loose protection against it. Now, I can attempt to explain how this sort of thing works, but it would be a lot easier to just play the skit Rusty made.
Hello, citizen, it's me, the government. And I've just been informed that your land...
You mean the land that my house is on that's been in our family for generations?
Yes, that land. Well, it turns out your land is located directly where a new business commerce center is proposed to be built, and that's gonna bring in a lot of new tax dollars. So we would like to acquire it from you for a fair price. How does $400,000 sound? Actually, it looks as though some developers have been buying all the surrounding properties in your neighborhood and purposely letting them get run down. Because of that, we can really only offer you $200,000.
Absolutely not. I raised my family here. It's worth way more to me. I refuse to sell for that insulting price.
Well, our developer friends sent out their own appraisers, and they've determined that your property is worth really only about $150,000. So unless you want to get tied up in a prolonged and expensive legal battle for the next 10 years, then I suggest that you take our just compensation.
No.
Okay, hard ass, then we're just gonna use eminent domain to take your property.
I wonder if the fact that the lobbyist is green is supposed to be a joke about him being an alien. Rusty then gives an example of such a thing happening when the US government wanted to build a research facility for the pharmaceutical company Pfizer on land of a small coastal area, which would lead to a bunch of people losing their homes. The government would end up winning the lawsuit and the neighborhood would be demolished. But the research facility was never built due to the 2008 financial crisis. He goes on to give more examples of such a thing happening. He mentions that the government can seize private property if the infrastructure falls into urban decay, which, as he says, could be orchestrated. He states that it's not impossible to win such a lawsuit, which, according to him, could lead to companies seizing the land via more sinister means. During the night, Rusty is woken up by a leakage in his tent. Once again, Rusty talks about the end of civilization, or the storm, and how he doesn't know what his role in it will be once it finally arrives. He talks about how, as you're about to fall asleep, it's always something that pulls you away as we hear the sound of trees falling. Rusty's stress seems to have developed into insomnia, or at least he seems to have trouble sleeping because of it. His mental health seems to have deteriorated drastically. He started to believe that the falling trees are a sign of a punishment for his complacency. He calls everything rotten, saying that we are all termites before quickly changing his mind, likening people to bees in a hive. He compares people to termites because he believes that the world is rotten and we, due to our own unawareness, keep making it worse. We keep eating away at the tree until it becomes too unstable and falls. His comparison to bees is because we are programmed by the media and society to do certain things and hold certain beliefs without thinking about it. Rusty seems to be trying to make sense of things and everything that is happening around him, which is why he believes it to be a punishment. But he's so disillusioned with everything that he just doesn't know what to think nor what to believe in anymore. Throughout this episode, Rusty complains about being too distracted, which is commentary on how there are so many distractions today that it becomes hard to find time to do things that are actually important. In his case, that would be building a guillotine. He also seems to believe that it is justified in a way because it's the only way for us to escape reality. As Rusty is distracted by watching the TV, Al appears on the screen asking him if he is prepared. Because of a constant stream of negativity and his life failures, Rusty just stopped caring about anything. I didn't mention this before, but his physical health isn't doing much better either, since he coughs up multiple times and even throws up in the video, which could be because he has been living in a moldy tent for months now, or because of his mental health, since your mental health and physical health are connected. It could also be a mixture of both. Red Rusty is seen tossing in his bed because he has a nightmare of two baby squirrels coming back to take revenge on him. As he throws them off of him, he sees a red light outside of his tent. Opening his tent, he finds a bag and opens it. But the scene is cut before we can see what is inside it. Rusty questions what is going to happen when we are rendered nothing but pigs, as he puts it. I believe that it's at this point that Rusty is starting to understand and accept, at least subconsciously, what is going to happen to him. As Rusty paints the guillotine song plays in the background. This is the second song whose music video differs from the version in the series, and my favorite song. The song is cut by Rusty discussing the paint he chose for the guillotine. He hears a tree falling, which barely missed the stairs of the guillotine. After that, the song resumes. Luckily for me, I don't need to try to analyze this one, because Rusty explained the meaning of the song during a stream.
So that song was kind of like the lyrics are a little bit pointing out the hypocrisy of a lot of revolutions. People are so willing to be violent and turn instantly to violence and then turn on everyone without properly channeling where the best sources of using their aggression or power is, and they end up taking out a lot of innocent people, which this is what happens in almost every revolution. You know, the idea is we're going to get rid of the rich or the powerful or the oppressors or whatever, and instead they usually get manipulated into turning on their fellow man and the people who are closest to them, like in Vietnam, people who wore glasses or who had books, anyone who was a doctor, because they were literate or they had some sort of special circumstance that wasn't the farmers. So it's kind of the idea that in these times of revolution, people lose sight of what they're actually trying to do, and it turns into insanity. And then once the revolting class takes power, they oftentimes become the same tyrants that they just fought off.
Rusty seems to have lost hope in the possibility of the revolution. He reminisces on everything he did wrong in his life, the things that he never got a chance to do, and all of his failures in life. He questions if he should have had children to serve as a surrogate for his second chance. Rusty's real fear was never the apocalypse or a revolution. The guillotine and the idea of revolution was just a distraction from his problems and failures. And he subconsciously knew it from the beginning. As Al explains this to Rusty, he stares at his gun before picking it up and shooting himself. Him shooting himself isn't literal, it represents him making a choice to end it all. We finally got to see what was inside the bag, a pig mask, the same one Al wore. Inside of it was a pig skull. Rusty puts the mask on, which I believe represents his acceptance of his death. The scene transitions to him outside, finishing up on the guillotine, as he questions why we wish death on other people. He believes that it's because it equalizes everything, because no matter who you are or what your social standing is, we will all end up as dust. The series ultimately ends on a positive note. The growing lemon tree represents a new chance and a growing hope. During the end credits, Rusty sings the song Sweet Lemonade. The lyrics and the song are melancholy, as he sings about keeping the price of the lemonade cheap so that the poor can afford it. They have so many that they'll never know I've been there. Hints that he still defies authority by taking things from the wealthy, much like how he did with the water from Nestle. The song still references revolution, with the line, "With a single chop the juice will flow," but yet the lyrics still remain hopeful that no matter what, things can still turn out alright if we stand together. The final song in the series is similar to the last one. Rusty sings while playing a guitar. The story of the Guillotine series is a story of a man dissatisfied with his life, desperate for a change, so much so that he began believing in the possibility of a revolution that will never arrive, all so that he can have something to hope for. he all but lost hope for any change or positive outcome. Despite all of his failures and hardships, he refused to surrender himself to despair. It is a beautiful story, masterfully crafted by the mind of RustyCage. Too bad everyone only focused on the stream that came out afterwards. Throughout the series, there was foreshadowing that Rusty will end his life. Rusty even foreshadowed it in one of his tweets, with him saying that his next video will be his last and tweeting, "Give me liberty." The live stream was supposed to be a celebration in which he listened to music with his audience and ate some food. He also said that he will be cutting a melon with a guillotine, depending on how long he plans to stream. Rusty seemed nervous throughout the stream, something that some of his viewers noticed. Around 50 minutes into the stream, he tries calling someone multiple times, but whoever they were, they never answered. After that, he turns the camera away, ensuring the viewers that it's just a melon. As he turns the camera, we can see the pig mask and the human skull next to it. After Rusty says thanks for watching, we can hear the sound of the guillotine falling. To me, it seems that whoever Rusty tried to contact was his last thread of light, the only person that could stop him from ending his life. So it is really sad to think that after Rusty went through with it, the person did call him back. So had he waited a bit longer, none of this would have happened. Even if you never watched the series, you might remember this because Pyrocynical covered it. Some people believe that Rusty actually offed himself. Someone even made a Reddit post asking if Rusty actually guillotined himself live. His friend Simeon Jimmy played into this by asking people on Twitter if they have heard anything from Rusty. Because some people thought that this was real, someone thought it would be a good idea to dox Rusty so that someone could call the authorities to see if he's alright. The individual has since deleted the dox files, saying that it's all a hoax and that people shouldn't waste authorities' time on it. Now the question remains, is this the actual canon ending to the series? Well, I think that it isn't, since Rusty said during the stream that he initially planned the series to end differently.
I kind of had a plan of what it was going to be about. It was going to be completely different. It was going to be an entirely different premise.
So I believe that this was a way for him to still use the original idea for the ending, while leaving the actual ending for the series separate from it. At the time there was some talk about Rusty leaving YouTube and this being his final video. I personally never believed that, for a good reason as it turned out. I mean, he's an artist, what else is he gonna do? In recent times, he seems to have used the alternate ending to start a new project. A podcast. A YouTuber making a podcast. What a surprise. I will not cover the podcast because it has little to nothing to do with the Guillotine series as far as I can tell. The series was one of the most interesting ones I've seen in a while, both on YouTube and in general. And I am really glad I had a chance to talk about it, since I don't know anyone in real life who has seen it, much less wants to discuss it with me. So this was the next best thing. It's almost unavoidable that some of you will disagree with some of my takes. So tell me what you thought about this video and the series in the comments, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.